So hey everyone, it is the beginning of August, so let's do a wrap up of all the books that I read in July. Hi, this is Jonathan, and this is Mr. Pearson Talks Books. I read 12 books in July. Now that is slightly more than I typically read, but primarily because it is vacation for me. I am on summer break, and it is the library summer reading contest. And so the more books you read at for the contest, the more tickets you get for the prizes. I didn't win anything this year, but it's always good to have chances to win. So let's go through the 12 books that I read. We'll start in the first one and go all the way to the last. First book is The Mysterious Benedict Society by Trenton Lee Stewart. And this is a middle grade book about, I think it's 4 kids who they take a test and they're chosen by this guy named Mr. Benedict, and he sends them undercover to a special school because there is thought that there's some shenanigans going on at the school, that the person who is running the school is trying to send out subliminal messages to people and going to use that to take over the world. I'm going to be honest, it sounded like a great premise. Honestly, the book was just okay. There are like 3 or 4 more in the series. I don't think I'm going to read any more of them, but I did want to give this one a try because I had it on my shelf there for a little bit. The next up, I read a Goosebumps. This particular Goosebumps was Deep Trouble. And it's about a brother and a sister who go to visit their uncle, who is a underwater scientist. He studies fish and animals and things. And while he is visiting his uncle, he thinks he has an encounter with a sea monster. And come to find out, he does have an encounter with something under the water. I don't want to say what it is because it'll give too much of the story away. Overall, not one of the strongest Goosebumps, but it was still pretty enjoyable because I read it in just a short amount of time. After that, I read one of my favorite books of the month, and that was the first book in the Thickety series by J.A. White, and this is called A Path Begins. And this is about a girl, I believe her name was Kira. She lives in this town that's kind of got cultish vibes. They're very religious, and they have things that they can and can't do. And when she was much younger, her mother was executed because they said she was a witch. And one day, something happens. She finds herself in this, they call it the Thickety because there's this like haunted forest, and there's this tree demon. And she finds herself out there, and she comes across a book. And it turns out that this book is called, I was told it's called a grimoire. And it helps her to cast magic spells. And of course, whenever you have magic spells in books and things like that, there's always going to be some type of consequence or cost that comes along with it. So she has to figure out the mystery behind this grimoire, how to overcome the forest demon who is trying to get to her, and still deal with the town itself. I mean, there's so much more I could say about this book. There's so many intricate details and parts. For a middle grade book, man, this thing was layered, and it was fantastic. I had so much fun reading this book. J.A. White, he wrote a book called The Night Books, which I had read previously. This is kind of a departure from that, but still fantastic. I mean, it's the first book in a 4-book series. After that, I read the book Pines by Blake Crouch. And if you've seen any of my videos already, you know this is a broken record. I don't want to tell you about Pines. Just know that it was a 5-star book. I read it in 2 days. And it's about, the only thing I'm going to tell you, it's about a Secret Service agent who wakes up in this town called Wandering Pines, has no idea how he got there, has no idea who he is, and it goes from there. And this has some horror elements, some really, really like scary stuff. There's some science fiction elements. There's mystery. It's every genre you can think of is thrown into this book. Blake Crouch books the two that I've read, both have been superb. This was another 5-star book for me. Following that up, I read the second book in the Thickety series, and this one was called The Whispering Trees. And at the end of the first book, you think that everything's okay, and they're not. And so the girl and her little brother find themselves on the run. They have to flee the town that they live in, and they go into the Thickety, where they are captured by the forest demon, and he requires them to do a particular task for them. And along the way, they meet a witch. I think her name was Mary Kitchen or Mary Cauldron, something along those lines, and who was a truly horrific individual. She was one that they were warned about, and she helps them, or does she? And there's lots of stuff going on. This one was great as well. This was probably a 4.5, not to the same level that the first book was, but man, it was fantastic. I read it in just a couple days as well. I have the third book from the library that I'm going to get to here shortly. Following that one, I read the new Jack Carr book, and this is called The Fourth Option, and it is about a CIA agent who was overseas, and a mission went wrong. They kind of went rogue a little bit. It went wrong, and his best friend ended up getting killed. And so he returns home. He's faced with guilt and trauma and all of these things, and he's about to put an end to things when he gets a phone call from his friend's wife saying, "Hey, I need your help." And so he finds himself embroiled in a mystery where her son was doing some investigative journalism and crossed the wrong people, and he died. And the wife thinks that it is a cover-up, that there are crooked cops and lots of other things. And so our CIA agent gets involved and tries to solve the mystery. This one has a very, very high body count. If you have read Jack Carr's book, The Terminal List, you're going to be very familiar with this book because it's almost point for point the same story. And I mean, different characters, different scenarios, but a lot of the Punisher, if you're familiar with that comic, the Punisher type stuff that happens in this book. It is gruesome. It was a fast read. Really enjoyed it because I like that kind of book. But just know that if you pick it up, you are in for a gruesome ride. I gave this one, I think, a 4 out of 5 stars. Following that, I read another Goosebumps. This was The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. And I got to tell you, R.L. Stine hit it out of the park with this one. This one was scary. There's something about scarecrows and moving scarecrows and that type of thing that really terrifies me. And it may have something to do with, I'm from the age where I remember, I never saw it, but I remember Children of the Corn. And so there's something about cornfields and scarecrows and things like that. This one was really scary. So if you like the scarier Goosebumps, definitely check that one out. I followed that up with another middle grade horror novel, and this one was called Monster Movie by Chuck Wendig. And this is the story of a young man who is scared of everything, terrified of all kinds of stuff. And he gets invited with all of the other kids from school to come over and watch the scariest movie ever made. And he chooses not to do it because he's scared. And so he goes over there eventually and finds out that the movie was actually, it wasn't just a monster movie, it was a movie monster. And the monster is going around and eating the heads off of all of the people in town. He's the only one who still has his head, and he has to figure out how to put an end to what is happening in the town and get everybody's heads back. The ending was a little bit hokey. There was some things in there. I don't like the term trigger warning, but There was a almost borderline abusive relationship between one character and a parent that kind of plays into the story. It's not a story about abuse or bullying or anything, but there are elements of that play into it. So just know that going in. This was probably a 3.5 out of 5 book for me. It was enjoyable, but I don't think that this is necessarily one that I would recommend to people. Not like Dust and Grimm by Chuck Wendig. That one was great. Then my reader, or people on this channel, voted and chose for me to read the book Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero. And I had such high hopes for this book. I really, truly did. Because it's billed as kind of a Scooby-Doo type story. And the premise is there are these 4 kids who, when they were younger, had this detective agency, and they would solve crimes. And the last crime that they solved involved a haunted house and a man dressed up in a monster costume. And he even said the words, "I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for those meddling kids." Well, he gets out of prison, and one of the girls goes to see him after he's out of prison and realizes they didn't actually solve the crime, that it wasn't him that was doing the haunting. And so they go back, and from there, it goes off into like cosmic horror, and there's buried gods and creatures and mutants and all kinds of stuff. Sounded really great. The execution of it left me wanting something. And there's a relationship between 2 of the characters that just was a little bit on the icky side. And I'm not the only one who felt this way. I looked it up on Goodreads, and other people felt the same way, that one of the characters develops feelings for another character and shares those feelings, and the other character doesn't have the same feelings, but it doesn't die. And so it just kind of feels like they're pushing and stuff. So overall, it was okay. Meddling Kids, but again, not necessarily one that I think I'm going to recommend for a lot of different reasons. Following that up, in preparation for another video that I'm hoping to make at some point, I reread the book Space Case by Stuart Gibbs. Now, I don't typically like Stuart Gibbs books. He is the author of the Spy School series, and his books just come across as mean, and the adults are always like unintelligent and dumb and make stupid choices and stuff. But Space Case was awesome. It's about families, they call them Moonies, that live on the moon. And one night, the hero of the story, the protagonist, he's going to the bathroom, and he overhears a phone, or what he thinks is a phone conversation about from his favorite scientist there on the moon, that he's going to share this big discovery the next morning. And so, but when he wakes up, the scientist has apparently died. And so he's trying to solve the mystery of what would cause the scientist to leave the airlock without his spacesuit being put on properly. And there are people on the space station who don't want the mystery solved because it costs millions and billions of dollars to send them up there. They want to keep the program going. This one was really good. There are 2 more in the series that I am looking forward to checking out. And there are some other books just like it that I'm hoping to read because, like I said, I'm hoping to have another video put together for it. Following that, I read, and this one was another 5-star book for me, Firestarter by Stephen King. And this was one of the books from my 50 Before 50 list. This is the story of a young girl and her father who were being chased by a secret organization called The Shop. Her father, Andy, when he was in college, he needed some money, so he participated in a drug study where he was told he was going to be injected with either distilled water or a minor hallucinogenic. It was not a minor hallucinogenic, and it caused all kinds of problems for the people who participated in the study. Andy developed this ability to encourage people to do things. He calls it the push. And his wife, she could move things with her mind, like close a refrigerator and do things like that. They got married and had a daughter, and their daughter Charlie, she has pyrokinesis. She can start fires with her mind. And the shop wants to use her as a weapon. And so Andy and Charlie are on the run from them, and eventually they are caught, and the story goes from there. This had one of the creepiest villains, a guy named Rainbird. In it, he is just a gross character, and as you read it, you'll understand why I say it. Stephen King really knocked it out of the park with this one. This is probably one of the best books of his that I have read. I haven't read many. There's a video. If you see, I'm now up to like 11. The video I made had 9. I've read two more since then. So this was number 11. But I absolutely love this book. It was great. Had such a good time reading it. And then finally, I read a thriller book called Survive the Night by Riley Sager. You've heard me say this on the channel before. Sometimes I read books, not because I'm interested in them, I just want to get a Goodreads bookmark. This was a Goodreads bookmark. It's about a girl. She has to leave college because of some tragedies that have happened. She's got to take some time off to recover, deal with the trauma and things that she's had to deal with. So she gets a ride from this guy named Josh. And Josh's story doesn't always line up, and all of this is set against the backdrop of a serial killer who's on campus, who is going around killing other co-eds, other students there, including her best friend, Maddie. And so, she's trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do if this guy really does turn out to be the killer? And in true Riley Sager fashion, this being the second one that I've read, there are lots of twists and turns and sometimes jumping the shark kind of things. Overall, it was okay. It was a very fast-paced book. I read it in just a few days. I enjoyed it, but I was really frustrated because the main character did some dumb stuff, like really dumb stuff. There's some like it's not you. I guess you can't really call it an unreliable narrator, because it's not necessarily in the first person. But you can't. The main character doesn't know what's real and what's not because of some mental illness that she's dealing with, and so things that she thinks are real may or may not be real, and other characters find out that and they use that against her. Just a lot of different things like that. So overall, this was like a 3.5 for me. So there are the 12 books that I read in the month of July. Had some really good ones. What I say, like Firestarter was a 5-star. The Thickety, first book in the Thickety series was a 5-star. Pines was a 5-star. So I had 3 5-stars. Had some others that were just okay. A couple that, I read them. There we go. But I want to know, which of these books have you read? Which ones have you read, and what were your thoughts on them? Or what was something that you read in the month of July that you think I would enjoy? I am looking forward to finishing up David Copperfield here in the near future. And I have a James Patterson book that I am planning to read as well. So leave all that down in the comments. I'm going to put some videos up here if you want to check out what's been happening lately here on the channel. And as always, my name is Jonathan. This is Mr. Pearson Talks Books, and I'll see you next time.